So, hi everybody, and welcome on our 13th Agile with Ukraine meetup. Today we have Don McGreal. So, Don is very famous already, but I'm gonna say some words about Don. So, raise your hand who knows the website Tasty Cupcakes.
Yeah.
Don did that.
My
Yeah.
redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
Can we
So
can we order this cupcake somewhere?
I used
yeah.
to when I used to do talks in person about the Agile games, I would bring cupcakes.
Wow.
Oh.
We should visit Texas.
Yeah, so Don is also the creator of one great scaling Scrum simulator, the Nexus Zoo, which I personally use quite a lot of times during the trainings and also during just the workshops to explain what scaling is about. And Don is also the co-author of awesome book, Professional Scrum Product Owner. Who haven't read it, highly recommend. It's an awesome one, and today we're gonna have a topic also about scaling, but about the accountability of the role of the product owner in scaling Scrum. Yep. So first, we see a lot of new people over here, so we just gonna take some time to tell you a bit about our initiative Agile with Ukraine, and then we're gonna give the mic to Don. So Artem, up to you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrei. So just a few words about our initiative. For those who are not first time with us, we were trying to update the slides a bit, so you will hear some new stories, and it's full of improvisation every time. So don't judge us harsh. So about Agile with Ukraine, when everything started, we are both Ukrainians, me and Andrei, and I am currently in Ukraine, in the middle of the country nearby Cherkasy. Andrei is in Poland, helping from there, and we've discussed how can we help our country because we are not the most promising soldiers for our country with our experience and preparation. And we're quite good in creating events and helping people to create good networking environment and share expertise, knowledge, wisdom. And we believe that there are two groups of people. One of them really have what to share and like to share with others, as like our guest star speakers, and other people like to develop their skills continuously and improve their environment for their teams as a leaders or as a part of these teams. So we've decided to organize a marathon of never-ending meetups with top-level agile speakers, which will help all these great people to contribute and support Ukraine in our war for freedom and democracy. Because we are not fighting only for Ukraine. Ukraine is just a starting point for Russia, and we want to stop them here, not to give them opportunity to go further. And just a few slides about what's going on here because you know the media is switching between topics very fast. Maybe you have seen this movie, yeah? Don't Look Up. And when some media is saying like Russia is killing civilians, the war is still going, others start discussing that Will Smith slaps Chris Rock during Oscars. And I'm not sure that it's comparable topics on the priority. As a, if I will be a product owner, I will definitely put the first topic a bit higher in backlog for media. And that's why I want to share as an Agile with Ukraine media with you some pictures of Ukraine. This is the central square of Kharkiv city with population more than 1 million, one of the biggest in Ukraine, and this is the biggest square in Europe. As you can see, no military objects before missiles was launched, so they are not fighting with our army, they are fighting with the whole population, with civil people, and it's start of the genocide against Ukraine. This is Chernigiv, one of the oldest city in region. It was built and situated before Moscow words appears, before Moscow city was built, but their media said that they are they were creators of Ukraine and we somehow separated, but no. Our past kings were building those cities on swamps and now they're trying to kill us. Maybe for that, maybe because of swamps or I don't know. This is Mariupol before and after invasion. You can see the horrible landscape of Mariupol, and it's still in progress. It's the hottest point of war nowadays in Ukraine. Unfortunately, more than 120,000 people, civil mostly, are still blocked in that city, and they are not given corridors to take them out. Not on the ground, not on the sea. Turkey proposed to take these people out. Russia is against it and not allowing to do it. So they are kind of prisoners on their own ground and in their own city. This is Kiev, the capital of Great Britain. It's a day of war number 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. Rocket hit just a residential building 5 kilometers from city center. This is the largest transport aircraft in the world, and there was only one such an aircraft in the world, and now it's fully ruined. Who knows this guy on the left? He is a winner of Golden Ball, which is every year prize for best football for US people, soccer football player in the world for last year. So in 1986, Igor Bilan was the winner of Golden Ball, and now he is serving in Ukraine territorial defense, protecting Kiev city from army. So best ever player of that year of football, world star, now should be with weapon in hands protecting his people and city. This is the newest shopping mall in the Kiev city, before and after. I've bought a flat just nearby for my grandma a few years ago, and she were living there. Thanks God we have chance to take her away before the missiles hit this shopping mall. This is newest business center, just opened last year in Kiev, also few kilometers from city center, before and after invasion of, how they call themselves? Protectors of people? Savers?
Rescuers.
Yeah. Rescuers, yeah, Russian rescuers. They want to rescue the whole world. We need to rescue the world and push them out back in their swamp. This is Chernigiv again, residential building, new one, with many flats as you can see. No army around, no military troops, just civil people. This is Bucha. I believe that you heard a lot about Bucha. You can use this hashtag if you're brave enough to see all the dirty jobs their military troops did, together with raping women even less than 18 years old. You can find a lot of media stories about it. It's disgusting. Even to talk about it, it's painful, but this is reality, unfortunately. And this how Yandex is Russian Google. So they are mostly using Yandex instead of Google. It's the most powerful search engine. And nowadays they are showing this when you will put Bucha. And this is Google. So you can compare how informational part of war is working nowadays. Yeah. And this is Zahar. He is from Bucha. He's 11 years old. Now he's, thanks God, also he's not living there. He was a refugee, and now he's hiding in Western Ukraine. That's what he's drawn. The sign says, "Good evening, we are from Ukraine," and he showed Ukrainian army who should push back Russian backs. And this is a part of my with wife project UA Kids Today. So we opened online gallery of Ukrainian children drawing the war. So if you are ready and wanted to see more, please follow this tag, UA Kids Today. What else? My family at the end of January were in the residence of Santa Claus nearby Kiev. And this is my daughter. She's looking at this nice building. And now you can see the consequence of staying of Russian army in that building for a few weeks. It's 25 kilometers from Kiev and 20 kilometers from my house. Also doesn't look like a military base. It's just a farm with many flowers, trees before, and a lot of ruins after. And what we are doing as Ukrainians nowadays, we are not hiding in shelters, we are not crying the whole day. This is the civilian people of Irpin, nearby Bucha, also fully ruined city, small city. And this is people going back home and helping each other to clean up the streets, to rebuild some infrastructural buildings and their own houses, and trying to go back to normal life. War is still here, but we need to rebuild everything around and go back to normal life. And we are not sitting the whole day crying, we are continuously working. You can see the programmers, software developers from one of the Ukrainian outsourcing company who are sitting in the shelter underground and working on creating software. So the commitment and courage of these people is quite high, I believe. And we want to be a partner of normal world still and continuously live our normal life. That's what we are doing. And for Europeans, we want to remind that Kyiv is not on another planet. It's quite nearby. So war is not that far, and we need support. We are really waiting for more strong sanctions for delivery of some weapon, because we have a lot of people, but we need to equip them more strong to be ready to push back this pure evil what is on our lands now. And to do this, we are collaborating with Uniters Foundation, and Andrei could tell a bit more about Uniters Foundation for you.
So,
thank you.
When we started this initiative, we wanted to gather the nations, and then we started to think, okay, we are to raise, we are with whom to cooperate. And I've been living in Warsaw for the last 10 years, and since the war has started in 2014, and the Russian aggression, Russians came on our soil in 2014 first, with the annexion of Crimea and also the war in Donbass. There was a pretty small foundation by that times, and it was called the Heroes of Maidan Initiative. And throughout 8 years, they were supporting Ukrainian army and Ukrainian people. And they rebranded themselves. Now they are called the Uniters Foundation. They're cooperating with the biggest Ukrainian funds. They are also cooperating with other foundations all over the world. And for those who don't know, like 90% of help which is getting to Ukraine is going through Poland. And currently, the biggest logistics center of humanitarian and also military help is set up in Warsaw, in Poland. And here, this foundation operates. So I know them since 2014. And if I think right now about one of the most effective organizations, I think about this foundation. Just think about the numbers. So since the beginning of the war, in 1 month period, they delivered more than 3,000 tons of help to Ukraine. 3,000 tons. It's about 100 tons per day. And when I asked them how we can help them, they said that they have volunteers with experience. They have a lot of contacts. They are pretty good about delivering help. What they need is stable income on finances. So this information right now, I see it's obsolete. As of today, we raised more than $31,000, but it's still not enough. We raised with our initiative $31,000. And it's still not enough. That's why we're continuing this ongoing initiative. And we ask you, our dear listeners, to donate. And there are two ways how you can donate. First of all, Artem will send the information in the chat, but also you can visit our website from which you can be redirected to the Polish service, which is called Zrzutka, and you can donate over there. And also you can donate via PayPal. We would very much appreciate this. Thank you for your attention. And now to the fun part, maybe, and more valuable part. So, Dan, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Links already in chat, and you can not only donate personally, but ask your colleagues, tell them more about this initiative, and I'll share a link about the initiative in chat also. Yeah, Don, microphone's yours.
I definitely wouldn't say it's the more important part, that's for sure. So thank you for organizing this and everything you guys are doing. For those of you that are new, please donate every little bit helps. I know it's hard from us all the other side of the world thinking that it's not really going to make a difference, but I feel bad just doing a quick little talk. But you know, it's a horrible situation. So thank you guys a lot. So we're going to talk about product ownership at scale here. And you know, we'll keep it informal. I just want to do a quick check. What time do we need to be done with this? Is it at the end of this hour? Because I just looked at the calendar and it was a little bit higher, but I don't know if that's the.
No, we have a bit more than an hour. So
okay, all right,
we have
good.
more than an hour.
So I'll try to leave time along the way as well. If you have questions, just keep it informal. It's not a huge group. If you've got questions along the way, I'll manage the time as we go. So let's talk a little bit about this. So about me, Andre already introduced me a little bit. I work for a company called Improving, based in Dallas, Texas. I am Canadian, though. That's important to point out. But actually, you know, my parents are English and Irish. I have 4 passports. I've gotten to work in Europe quite a bit as well with that. So I just got my U.S. citizenship right before the 2000 election, or the 2020 elections, which was a fun one to be a part of. So that's a bit about me. Please connect with me if you're not already on LinkedIn. Send me an email, Twitter, whatever. So I'm happy to keep the discussion going long after this. I'm a trainer with Scrum.org as well, like Andre is. And like you said, I've written a book around product ownership. This is where my passion's been for many, many years. I started as a programmer. My first Scrum project in 2003, I was a business analyst, and nobody really knew what to do with the product owner role. And they just pointed at me and said, "Do you think you could do it?" I'm like, "I guess." And I really thought my job was just to write everything down for everybody. Like I was a secretary for the team. They'd look at me and go, "Hey, the customer said something. Can you write that down, Don?" And I've learned over the years that, you know, to be successful at this role, I needed to take a different stance. Today, we're working with a lot of companies that are scaling. There's all sorts of scaling frameworks out there, all sorts of levels of success when scaling. And what I really want to focus on here are some things that you know, avoid all the framework wars as much as possible. My company is improving. When we started this company in 2007, there was 12 of us, and now there is 1,500 around North America. We have 2 offices in Mexico and 3 in Canada now. We just acquired a company in Ottawa and Toronto. So we're all over there. We build software for people, is what we say. And we've tried a lot of things over the years. I've been with the same group of people for a long time. We've done waterfall. We've done rational unified process, if you remember that. RAD, Kanban, like all sorts of ways to deliver value to our customers. And Scrum is the thing that's worked best for us. We don't do it because it's what sells. We do it because it's what works for our customers when we build products for them. So if something better came along, we would jump ship in a heartbeat. And I tell my customers the same thing, right? If something better comes along, you try that. I do something else. But it works. It provides value. As a product owner, and this is the subtitle of my book, I found Scrum was a great way to have a competitive advantage. Right? We leverage Scrum as a competitive advantage. It's a great way to achieve value. And so our company sees it the same way. So why this talk? You know, going from client to client, using all sorts of these frameworks, LESS and SAFe and Scrum at Scale and Nexus, and probably missing a few. But there's a lot of different things. But we see, I mean, as a consultant, I get to see so many different organizations struggling with the same things, and it doesn't seem to matter what framework they're using. But there's a lot of finger pointing between the scaling frameworks. You know, we like to bash them, we like to complain about them. But the reality I'm seeing on the ground is that the core principles are the same. And when I get to talk to people, some of the people that created some of these frameworks, when you really kind of lay it out, we all agree on the same fundamental principles. But unfortunately, we get hung up on terminology and we misunderstand a lot of the practices. So, SAFe is a good example. Hey, there's a product owner for every single team. Well, I've had 2 different fellows. I guess apparently that's the highest rank in SAFe. There may be higher ones, I don't know. But they said, actually, that's just a role. You can have the same people in the product management role and the product owner role. You can have product owners as part of the team, more tactical in that sense, and then product managers. So maybe now we're just talking about words, aren't we, in titles? I talk with people at Scrum Inc. and the chief product owner role, or area product owners and less. Ultimately, we can do the exact same things that we're going to talk about here. And if it's easier for you to change the words because the people around you are using those frameworks, great, go do that. But I want to get value from this, and that's what we're going to talk about here, right? The following applies regardless of what scaling framework is used. Make sense? You in the right spot? Okay, so let's talk about the product owner job first. Let's keep it simple. So what is a Scrum team? A Scrum team is accountable for creating a valuable, useful increment every sprint, not the product owner. The whole Scrum team have accountability when it comes to creating something valuable and useful every sprint. The product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product. Now, this language is right from the Scrum Guide. But that's not an easy thing to do. What does that mean? Accountable for maximizing the value of the product. So what do I do as a product owner? Well, if you sit down and make a list of all the things product owners could do, it's going to be a fairly long list, right? These are just some I came up with a few days ago, all the things I can think of. I've used them for other talks and some of the trainings and stuff, but there's a lot of things a product owner can do, and it can be overwhelming, right? You've got things from answering questions to managing that dang product backlog to working with customers, establishing a vision, a product goal, and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that can be done there. And this is hard if you're at scale or not. But so what I like to use this analogy a lot is this is no different from other industries. It's no different from other roles out there. A product owner is kind of like the CEO of a product. And if you're a CEO or owner/CEO of a single bakery, you can do all the things, right? You could bake the cakes, you could work the finances, you can do the cash register stuff, right? You can do all that. It's hard, and you may know people that do all of that. They run the whole thing, or they have their family working in the store. But then the question is, should they, right? So just like a single bakery in a single store who owns that store can do all the things, a product owner could do all these things as well. They could do those tactical things. They could get the acceptance criteria just right. They could even help test during a sprint, even take on some things off the sprint backlog if they need to. But the question is, should they? What I might hear, right, is something like this, even from the baker, right? The single baker owner. If I'm doing all this stuff, when do I have time to grow my business? I'm so busy. I don't have time to do the marketing and the branding and the sales or expanding my store to other places. Look how busy I am. And with product owners, I hear something similar. It's like, how do I scale? I'm going to have to hire like somebody for every single one of these pieces. And look how many things I'm doing. So what we like to talk about this is from our product owner course, Scrum.org PSPO course, is there are different, things you do as a product owner or different mindsets you might have. So when I started out, I was firmly in the scribe. I was the secretary. I would write things down for people. Then you get into the proxy role, where generally when you're a proxy, you're representing the business to the developers, and you're representing the developers to the business. But what's the typical response every time a proxy is asked a question?
I need to ask my manager.
Yeah, let me go check, right? Let me go ask. So they quickly can become a bottleneck. We can solve that maybe by having somebody who understands the business a little bit more, maybe somebody from the business, somebody who's an expert, a subject matter, a domain expert. They may be able to answer some questions, even start initiating some of the things that we're going to be creating. The sponsor is more in tune with the budget, right? They've been involved in the business case. They're very familiar. They understand how much we're spending every sprint. They're really focused now on, are we heading in the right direction? And then finally, the entrepreneurs treats it like they're spending their own money on this. Like if we're saying we're going to go 10 sprints and our sprints cost $50,000, that's $500,000, and we don't have a single release, an entrepreneur looks at that and says, how am I going to get my money back, right? Without a release, there's zero return on my investment. I don't get a penny back. I only spend money. So an entrepreneur starts thinking in terms of a return on investment, right? So that's where we would like to see our product owners go. But there's a lot of these different tasks that we do. And I suppose we could start organizing them. If we did a little exercise here, you could probably figure out which ones are more associated with which areas, right? I just did a quick kind of movement here. So you've got things that are a little bit more on the tactical side on this side, like the working on like testing increments and researching requirements and stuff like that, all the way over to the more strategic, which is the vision, the product goal, the marketplace, managing budget, stuff like that is going to be more on the strategic side, right?
I believe we have a question, Don.
Yep.
Artur?
Yep, sorry, I have one question. Like, will you share your PTT, or I should like screenshot all the interesting slides?
I don't understand. There's two chains of notes. One asking your rate.
I'll share my slides. I didn't know if there was another.
We are recording it, Artur. We are recording it.
Oh, and you're recording it.
No,
Yes.
I just to want to take your slides and present to my leadership. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll share the PDFs if that's okay with it.
Yeah, great.
It may not have the fancy animations that I worked so hard on.
Okay.
I'll have to make it so that it works better like that. So yes, so that's kind of what we're trying to do here. Now, like I said, you can do it all. Should you do it all, even in single team Scrum, right? So there's a lot of stuff that we need to be able to do. So the key here is, once you start to expand to multiple teams, multiple stores, if you're the baker, how do you manage all this? Obviously, at this point, you're probably going to be doing a lot less baking cakes, right? You're going to have people down here that you're going to have to trust for that. So everything we looked at and managing all of that is obviously a much bigger problem when you're too tactical. At scale, how much, I'm going to go back here. At scale, how much more of the things on the right would we really need to do? The vision's a vision. The vision may not change if I have more people, right? The product goal might not change. I might get to it quicker, hopefully. Otherwise, why are we bothering scaling, right? The only reason to scale is I want to go faster. It's not going to be linear. We all know that, right? So the things on the right probably aren't going to get that much more difficult. So, but if you're doing all the things on the left, obviously, this becomes much more painful, right? This is a bigger problem when the product owner is too tactical. And that's usually what the complaints are about in the product owner side of things. So what do? Delegate, right? You've got all those tactical things. Those are the things that you would delegate, just like the baker would want to hire people in the store that they trust to take care of that, to take care of the finances, to take care of the cash register. Oh, but they might steal. Yeah, so you got to trust them. They've got to be aligned with your vision. So we've got to look for ways to delegate, and that's what ultimately this is. So I looked at all the different patterns that I've seen out there with organizations with scaling Scrum. I've looked at the scaling frameworks quite a bit, and they all sort of advocate the same things. And these are the 5 delegation models that we can use at scale. You can do one or mix and match. They don't have to be done independently of each other. Likely to be successful, you're going to need to do more than one of these different things, right? So it's the 5. We'll walk through these. So it's tactical, technical, team, temp, and theme. The 5 T's is what we're calling it. in here. I noticed a lot of them had T's when I was started to do this, looking at this across our different customers doing this sort of thing, and I forced some of the other ones into it just so that I can get all T's here. So let's look at them one by one. Tactical. So this is one that a lot of scaling frameworks, without saying it, kind of follow in a way. Scrum at Scale has like the product owner team, right? And so there's a product management group or whatever within SAFe as well. But forget about it. What are we trying to do? We keep the strategy and direction with the product owner. We still keep the same backlog, but probably the maintenance and management of this product backlog could be given to a group of tactical people. They're focused on tactics and execution. They don't necessarily have to be assigned to any team. They're just doing a lot of the things that were on the left of that previous slide. They're going in and testing different things. They're going in and working with different customers if possible, making introductions of the customers to team members if necessary. They're doing a lot more of these these tactical things that my more strategic now product owner can possibly do. So they'll be acceptance criteria. Maybe they're helping with refinement on these things in preparation of the backlog, so that these teams can pull from that backlog. I see there's a question, Marta.
Yeah, and like all the miscommunication happens when you delegate like strategy and vision through this tactics guys, you know, when you have like, for example, scale for 500 of people. So definitely like part of the information missed when like this information travel from the head to the bottom.
Yes, but I think what I heard you say is that happens more when you're delegating the strategic pieces, right? So, right, it's the tactical. So as long as I, as a product owner, can be strong on relaying my vision and my progress towards the product goal, I can trust a little bit more down here, as long as they truly understand that vision. And that might be a problem at first, and I might have to get more involved until that happens. But the more they understand who the customer is, the more they understand that the work we're doing is improving these customers' lives. When I'm a product owner, that's a very specific thing I try to say, is that I would like you to meet the people whose lives are being impacted in a positive way by the work that you're doing. All the work that your teams are doing every single sprint is improving somebody's life. Is that not a true statement for all of you guys? That's not always obvious. So as a product owner, I want that to be true. And the more I'm able to introduce the tactical people to the people whose lives are being impacted, the less hands-on I need to be. They understand the vision. They're making better decisions in accordance with the vision. And I don't have to check on every little thing. That could be a while, right? As we build up that trust. But that's what I'm getting at here. So this is just one version of it, is let's just hire some people or bring some people in. Maybe these are subject matter experts or other stakeholders, maybe even users, to actually go in and do the things on the product backlog. I don't need to write any acceptance criteria as a product owner. I believe in what they're doing. As long as they're moving towards the product goal, I'm okay with it. I have to trust them. I can't be involved in every item on the product backlog as a product owner. I'm looking at the outcomes. So there are pros and cons to this, right? This, you get a dedicated group for the tactical work, but the problem is that teams might be, with this, the teams themselves might still be kind of too far removed. So the people on the ground doing the work may not be as involved in updating the product backlog, making changes to it, adding their own acceptance criteria. This group here might end up with like a pride of ownership. That's our job. No, we do that. And that's what I find the biggest issue is the communication. Is every time this is what the problem with proxies are too, is anytime somebody goes around the proxy, they may get upset, right? It's like, no, that's my job. I'm the one that carries the requirements over to teams. Nobody else does. And this could happen here, and it might separate the teams too much. But what they're doing is taking on the tactical work for the product owner, who can still manage the strategic stuff, the stuff on the right. The other T is the technical stuff. What if we could build the product management work into the product itself? What we mean here is, so down in the product, the tactics and execution, part of this, and this could be obviously in conjunction with the other model, we delegate to the product. So you've probably seen these sorts of things before, but my product owners don't always invest in doing this. They don't put it into their backlog with everything else on actually letting the product do the work. So I could have a feature prioritization amongst my customers, where they're the ones actually voting for things and moving things up and down. And that could help me a lot in terms of knowing what the most valuable things are, right? It's good input for that. That could just be done throughout. I could get great people to I could look at the early adopter customers to test things out with through betas. So you've probably seen something like this, where it's like, hey, get a sneak peek at the upcoming new features. They'll blow your mind. Try it. Actually, I don't have my, oops. I had updated that, but try it, or I didn't want to use their name here. I had it wiped out, but you could try it, or, not yet. You're not affecting your risk-averse customers, but you can try out these new things with the people that are a little bit more on the early adopter side. So giving people the option of trying features as they come in, you can toggle them on and off for them, right? And if they don't like it, they can go back, which is valuable information for us as well. So then you get better feedback. Now you've got your customers doing some of the tactical work. And then A/B testing as well. Let's just try two different things rather than trying to decide, put it out there. Let's see which one hits. So obviously the benefit is automation. Your teams are more involved too, I find, because the teams are going to be implementing this stuff. They're going to be building it. And now they understand that this is part of the product too. And they're not just there to just add a bunch of features at the product owner's request. They're there to truly understand the customer. So having them implement it and even analyze the data is something that is great to get them more involved. But the problem is this could be expensive, right? This is taking away from building other pieces of your system. Another one, and I'd have to say that this is probably my favorite, but it's not always the easiest, is if I have true product teams where it's not just one person focused on the customer. The one person, the product owner, is setting the strategy, but we've got whole teams that truly understand the customer, have direct relationships with the customers, are working with the customers, are prototyping with them. And they themselves are able to manage the product backlog. They can put things on there themselves because they understand the vision so well. And so as a product owner at this level, I care about the higher themes. And I really, I'm not going to worry about which order the individual backlog items are done in order to achieve those things. I have to trust them. So I'm going to want to know, hey, how's the overall payment ability coming, which may be composed of 20 stories. I don't really care what order they do those stories. They don't need me to determine what order to do them. But they might be able I might be able to, at a quick look, say, well, they've got about half of them done. So, all right, we're moving on that area. I don't need to be involved in every little detail and the acceptance criteria at that level. One thing to consider in this thing is if you feel that they don't have the capacity or stuff like that, if you have these folks up here, it could be a matter of just putting them on the teams. Oops. Putting them on the teams like that. So what I like to see is, even with single team Scrum, when I was a product owner, and if I had a team member or members come up to me and say, hey, we need more details for this requirement. When I was a scribe, I would say, oh, yep, I'm on it. Give me a day or so and I'll capture that. But when I became more strategic, I would say, oh, okay, what can I do to help you capture those? What do you need from me? Because the last thing I want to do, because this is where I get burned a lot, especially at scale, is when there's some external entity that's expected to build something and throw it over the wall to my teams. You know what I mean? So a BA group that has to get stuff ready to hand to a team for their sprint, that's never going to be perfect. And when it isn't, they blame. When it's too much work, it's waste. When it's not enough, there's back and forth. It's just waste. It's huge. There's like 3 levels of waste in that model. So my approach is to say to the team, what can I do to help you? Do you need training on the domain? Do we need to hire more business type folks? Can I grab somebody from the business to be on the team to answer some of your questions as you gather those requirements? Right? I'm looking at, that's the delegation, and I'm looking at, so whoever the right level of requirements is determined by the team. And this team might need more than this team. This team might need less. This one likes all sorts of diagrams and designs and stuff. Then do it. Then they come up with the right level, as opposed to determining what the right level of requirements are for everybody. Let them do it themselves. Was there a question? Go ahead, Arthur.
Yep, the question is like how much money it will cost for the business to like grow this team of product owners, and how much time?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's going to cost money. I always talk about the overhead of scale, right? If you're deciding to scale, you are basically saying, I am spending a premium in order to go faster, right? There's 2 reasons to scale a product. One, and unfortunately it's the most common one, is we already have a ton of people left over from waterfall. We're not going to fire them. How do we organize them the best way possible, right? And then 2, we're not going fast enough. We get it. This team is delivering value, but it's not going as fast as I want them to. So let's add more people. But obviously you've got the mythical man month problem there, right? So obviously if we add a second team, we're not going to double value. So we're actually going to pay a premium. And this is what I make very clear to executives making these decisions before they make them. So every time you add somebody, you're actually paying extra for them, whether they're a programmer or an analyst or a tester or whatever, or somebody to help the product owner. That's the overhead at scale. And if you've decided to go scale, then you're saying we're spending extra money here. It's going to be more expensive per value created at scale than if it's just one small focused team working through value. And that's all part of it. Yeah.
Maybe it's a dumb question, but maybe you will have like slides next to which will help us to decide which like of the models you proposed to choose. Because it's a big discussion to decide first option, second option, third option. Yep.
I mean, I'm going to have them all there. Like all of them, we could summarize it afterwards, right? For it, if that's what you're saying. But yeah, let's see. And we can continue the conversation afterwards too. So this one is good. Teams are much more customer focused, which is what I always find is my secret to success as a product owner. Is I do not want to get in the way of the teams and the customers. It's true product teams is what we're going for here. The moment I become the bottleneck, even with one team, then they're too far removed and they don't really truly believe in what we're doing. They're less willing to do something that's not their skill. But if they understand the customer and the pain the customer is going through, and they see there's no testers available to do some testing, the programmer, a front-end programmer has some availability. They're more inclined to jump on that and get it done so that we can get that value out to the customer if we've developed a relationship with them. So I'm always looking for ways, at least at the sprint review, for them to work directly with the customers on what they've done, to get feedback from them directly, not just through me, the product owner. And so that style with one team allows me to scale a lot more. I trust these teams. I'm going to delegate to the team members and let them talk specifically to the customers. We cannot have our teams in a basement where we hide them from everybody and we feed them pizza under the door. That's not the way this is going to work. If they don't have the skills to talk to customers, then we need to build up those skills. Just like if they don't have the skills to do testing, we need to build up those skills. Just like if they, so that's an important skill, arguably more important than their technical skills. But the downside is, what if your teams aren't ready yet, right? What if they're not there? And that's where you see one of the more common ones. And I've decided to call this the temp model. This seems like the obvious choice in a lot of situations. It's the easiest thing, I think, for our brains to get around, is that, well, why don't we just have a bunch of mini product owners? So we have the main product owner, and then you've got a product owner for every single team. I guess this is logical, right? But the problem, the good thing is each team has a dedicated person to go to, but it creates hierarchies, it creates proxies. Likely these people, when you ask them a question, what's their answer going to be? Let me go check, let me go find out, right? They may not be as empowered. The other problem I have with this is your product backlog often then can't stay intact. So what's going to happen is this backlog, we're going to have to divide out into these different groups. And now things can change in the marketplace, but they're all working through separate backlogs at different pace. But what if something changes in the marketplace that makes these two backlogs, everything on it, are more important than the most important thing on these backlogs? Like, how do we now compare across them? So you end up siloing these teams a little bit too much. So by any means, I try to keep my product backlog intact to one list that we go down, and the teams are pulling from that list. But I don't want to necessarily keep it. So I call it the temp because they are there just so that we can move to a model like the team model, the team delegation model instead. And they're trying to get these folks to a place where they're not needed as much anymore. So yeah, I'll answer all the questions right now, but maybe let me teach you a little bit about what this stuff is. And maybe next time you don't need me anymore. And by the way, you've got a question, I'm about to go talk to a customer to answer it. Why don't you come with me? Yeah. Why don't we build some of that into the product as a technical side of things? So that's why this, to me, is a temporary model. And you've got to put people in this that are willing to hand that over. And maybe they join teams afterwards, or they start acting like team members, or maybe one of these other models where they're back on the strategy direction. So they would operate just like I do for a single team. I try to get my team focused on the customer. Yes, a question?
I apologize. Question from the stupid. Before we go too far, I think I lost. What is the difference between this model and the previous one?
So the previous one is these guys are on the teams, right? So they're not product owners, right? These are tactical people that can help with they could be analysts, they could be, whatever. I don't really care what their job title is, but they're helping do all the left-hand side activities, the tactical activities for the product owner. And if you wanted to actually, what if we said, let's put them on the teams? So there is no one product owner here, right? There's one product owner. There's not a product owner per team. They are team members. Mm-hmm. They're developers, actually, in terms of Scrum, they're developers. They're the ones touching they're making sure those tactical things on the product backlog happen more.
It's like representatives from teams to like product owner team or what?
I'm sorry, say that again.
It's like representatives from these teams and they go to product owner and work with product owner closely or what?
Yes. I mean, look, I don't necessarily want one person assigned to be the only one that's allowed to talk to the product owner. Just like with the customers. So the moment we do that, then we start to create the proxy problem. So
that's why I asked you.
Yeah, I want them to give to have the tools necessary to answer their questions themselves. And maybe these people that join them can help them with that, right? Inside the team. So this is, again, is when they start coming to me with questions, every time I'll answer the questions, but I'm also going to be like, how do I next time make it so that they don't even need it? They'll know the answer themselves. That maybe they can go right to a customer, as long as they understand where we're going with this. They only come to me when there really isn't a direction whatsoever. I haven't done a good enough job explaining the direction that we're going, if I'm up in this part here. So yeah, the team is, the only reason I put them in there is because I was trying to like transfer from, imagine a group of people outside of the teams working with the product owner. Well, the second model is, rather than having some separate one that maybe have the teams too far removed, I guess, from it, then what I want to do is maybe put them on the team full time, so I have stronger teams in terms of understanding the direction of the business. This model is the one you tend to look at a lot, where they are the in-between folks. And this is what you might see when you look at SAFe, right? So SAFe has a product manager or product management role up here. And they have product owners for every single team. And this is troublesome. I've worked with SAFe, but when you take it by the book, it doesn't seem to fit right. You're creating these hierarchies so that the teams have to ask the product owner then asks the product manager, and it creates a lot of delay.
Yeah, and the product manager get to ask the real customer.
yeah, it's like many levels removed. Well, but But I've worked with teams that got around this in SAFe, where the product managers didn't see their role as the proxy. They were more part of the team, was one option. Or in some situations, they were this person. So I've seen people put SAFe together when there was only 3 teams. 3 teams, one product. So rather than having 4 product people, like the product manager, and it just didn't make any sense. That's more costly, right, Archer, to do something like that. So we just had one product manager who was also the product owner for these teams. They were just focused on strategy.
But maybe in your example, it's not a SAFe case, because as I know, like SAFe is starting from 1 art, and it's like 50 to 125 people.
I know, but that's what SAFe. So this is another example of people misunderstanding SAFe, and that's one of my points here, is that SAFe is never intending to do this. SAFe says that an Agile release train should be for 50 or more people, but I would say that the majority of I'll say the majority of arts I see are less than that. And they're overcompensating by installing everything in SAFe. And the most experienced SAFe practitioners, the creators of SAFe, would tell you, don't do that. Don't have a product owner per team in those situations. Just follow Scrum, or they have the SAFe Lite or whatever that's called, like where you can have the exact same person play both the product owner in quotes role and the product manager role. I don't really care about the titles. They're not important here. It's the same thing in Scrum at Scale. You've got this concept of a chief product owner, but even talking to the Scrum Inc. folks, they say the same thing. Chief, I think it's right in the Scrum Inc. guide. It says the chief product owner can also be a product owner for the teams. But people see this and they just install it, and they create needless hierarchies, even though the frameworks are not advocating for it. I think the only one that's really explicit is less. So Les says there, and probably Nexus as well, right? Nexus says there's one product owner, so does Les. But Les does have this concept of an area product owner, but it's only meant to be at huge less, right? Less huge, I guess, is what they call it. But I've seen people implement area product owners when they didn't need it, like, but it's written in less, and so we're going to do it, right? I really don't care about what you call them: chief, product manager, technical product, super product owner, whatever it is. I'm not going to fight you on the names. So when I'm in the SAFe organizer, you want to call this person a product manager? Okay, whatever. I think of them as the product owner. We don't have multiple owners of a business or CEOs of a business. We only have one. So you could have multiple owners, but I'm not gonna battle that. I'm not gonna take that on. I've got bigger battles to fight at that level. So I don't worry about the titles. We get too wrapped up around those things. Yes, Artem?
Yeah, adding about the misunderstanding of frameworks. I'm certified less coach, and what I'm seeing around, people say like, yeah, we want to use some scaling framework, we like less. And we have mobile and we have web version and we have this. So this team will be area of mobile, this team will be another area, and we will build less huge. And you're asking like, how many people do you have? Yeah, we have about 30 people. You start explaining about that. No, less huge is not for 30 people. You can do just a normal less, and it's quite an often popular misunderstanding of any framework, I believe. Maybe it's related, that organization want to feel huge. So no, we are a big business.
Or we want to be ready.
Framework is not for us.
Or they see scaling
enterprise.
Or they see scaling frameworks. I think often they see scaling frameworks as an agile adoption framework. That's the other big thing, right? It's meant to be at scale, but it looks like, hey, if we install all this stuff, we'll be agile now. So that's another part of it. And I swear I've had companies that only had about 20 to 30 people in the whole company implement SAFe. Now, is this a failing of SAFe? You could argue that. It's kind of like the whole, should I build I don't want to get into the whole gun debate, but people kill people or guns kill people. I see a lot of people abuse Scrum, like use it as a weapon, weaponize Scrum. And you have to commit every sprint to do this work, and you get to report your status to me every single day, and it's a beatdown for teams, and they hate Scrum because of it. It's because so are we wrong for selling Scrum, which many of us do? Are we wrong for selling SAFe if the majority of people, maybe, right? I don't know. But nobody who created or are doing it for the wrong reason. Well, I shouldn't say. I don't know about that. But there are the principles within them are all the principles we adhere to in the Agile world, right? Like so what I would say, if you're a consultant, if you're working in these organizations, just steer them and say, this is possible in SAFe. We actually don't have to do this in SAFe. They advise against it in SAFe. And so you can start these models are what are important. It's not all the different practices that you are allowed to use in SAFe. SAFe is and like all of these, we call subtractive frameworks. You're not meant to use them all, you pull from it. Basic Scrum is an additive framework. By itself isn't any good. You have to add to it to be successful. For SAFe, you need to remove from it to be successful. Yeah?
Yeah, just want to agree with both of you, with you and Artem. Like we can count and lots of cases of misunderstanding Scrum, and when we talk about scaling frameworks, the level of complexity and misunderstandings skyrocket.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let me let's move on here for the last one here and then I'll wrap it up, is the theme one. And honestly, I like using this as a way to get out of the temp as well. So this is temporary. We want to move from this. And what I use, I'll say, so we are saying we want a product owner for every single team. Why? they'll probably say, well, I mean, they can answer questions for the team, they can organize the product backlog, all that stuff. Okay, but what if I've got 3 very distinct parts of my system? It takes a lot of knowledge to understand them. We want experts for each of them. And I happen to have 5 teams working across these 3 parts. Couldn't I just have 3 product type people representing each of those areas and let the teams go to them with questions based on what they're working off of? You know, because then, you know, it doesn't have to be a one-to-one. The one-to-one creates the hierarchy. But if you had like 5 teams and 4 of these people, then automatically the hierarchy isn't intact anymore. So what I'm talking about here in the theme one is maybe you have folks that kind of divide themselves out into, for lack of a better word, themes, because it starts with T, or areas inside of the product. And then the teams go to them if they need more information. These are like subject matter experts, have representatives for different product areas for teams to consult. Like, why wouldn't this be as valid as having 1 per team? You know, maybe because the teams might end up being focused on one. I don't want them focused on any one product area. I want us to focus on the most important thing for the business, whether it's all in A or some of it's in A and C and none in B or wherever the market is. I want these teams doing in the backlog. The backlog is mix of all of these things. And if they need a lot of help, they've got people to go to. So if the next sprint goal has a lot more to do with product theme B, we would be spending a lot more time with this person. They're not our spokesperson for the product owner. Call them a SME, call them whatever, area product owner. But and now we've got 3 of them that can support 5 teams. What's wrong with that at scale? This to me is a much more pragmatic approach for this. You've got now dedicated experts that teams can go to based on what they're working on. So in 1 sprint, I might have to go jump into 2 things, and I got 2 different people to go to in this case. The downside could be, but I find it's harder for me to find a downside to this as much as the other ones. But the con here could be that because of this, now we've taken that knowledge outside of the team, and it might just remove them too far from the customer if these are the only 3 people talking to the customer, maybe with the product owner. I want anybody to be able to talk to the customer. Another question?
Yep. In such example, like for example, for 1 sprint, 1 team can reach all the product owners and will work with all of them. So is it like possible, or is like anti-pattern?
It's possible. I would treat it maybe as a bit of a smell. Like if they have to go to a lot of them in 1 sprint, for 1 team to go to them, I would wonder if they have a very cohesive sprint goal, right? But it's possible, right? You could still have a sprint goal that mostly has to do with this one, but there's like one report that somebody really absolutely needs in this area of the product here. So we might have to go work with them, but it doesn't affect the sprint goal. Like that would be my only concern, is that every single team sprint is a smattering across all of them. I'd wonder if we could create more cohesiveness within our sprints. Yeah. So it's exactly like if a team can't come up with a single sprint goal, what does that tell you? Well, they're probably just taking random stuff and they're not thinking about cohesiveness. That's the only one. So I'm not against it. It's just I would want to investigate. So knowing also in this direction is worth bringing up that this could result in other products too, right? So another way to deal with scale, I didn't make it another model, but because it's not really, well, I guess it could be delegation, is what if we just broke it, the big product into multiple products? Now, I would never recommend this if the only reason you're doing it is to manage your work better, right? You don't create products just to make the organization of work easier, right? So I would consider it as long as it fits in the organization's strategic direction. So I've seen this happen where all of a sudden, you know, we've got a mobile. This is not as much these days because everything's mobile, but it was a lot more strategic back in the day where it's like it's an experimental thing, but it's in the executive group has said, we want to next year, this is like a strategic investment into mobile. So, or cloud or something like that. But let's say mobile. We want to make a strategic investment into mobile. We're going to give a budget of $2 million this year for mobile development. Now, as a product owner, what I hear is I'm going to get dedicated teams, right? You're going to give me $2 million. I'm going to have dedicated teams to focus on this initiative. This is a strategic initiative for us. Now, is that mobile part of the other product? I guess maybe. But if my executives and my stakeholders see this as an initiative for the organization that gets us to the next piece, then I'm okay with having a separate product owner and dedicated teams only for that initiative. Because they've got their own budget, the product owner is focused on ROI, and we can show progress and show value independently of the greater product. But it has to make sense from the organization standpoint, if you know what I mean, right? This is a separate budget, separate value indicators, separate customers, and maybe in this case, completely separate POs. There's likely some dependencies now that we create with it, but I would like a product owner to come up with a focus for getting this stuff up in mobile. Or maybe some other, AIML is another one, right? It's like, we're really going to push on this in this way. That makes sense here? So like, this is I'll show like maybe some examples of what do we mean by a product. Well, you know, and why an organization could strategically decide to create products. If I'm a car company, there's some obvious products, right? These are the 3 car models. This is from our advanced product owner course, by the way. Here are 3 different models of car. A customer of the car company sees 3 different products. But how we might strategically go about it might include more than those types of products. Just like a bank, there's the financial products, the checking accounts and the credit cards and all that stuff. But then there's products like the mobile app and the website and the channels to access them. And that's how they compete now, right? It's strategic. That if you don't have a mobile app for a checking account, I don't care what your interest rate is. The only way you as a bank compete is based off of your channel that you're using, right? Whether it's a mobile app or a website or something. That's the only way they're going to choose between you. They're competing on the technologies. So in this case, if I look within the organization, I might, I keep hitting the button here, sorry. I look within the organization, the car is made up of lots of other things, like an airbag or the tires or the engine or the battery. Are these not products? Just like your product could be made up of, you know, a mobile piece or maybe a platform that's shared across different places and all that stuff. It may not be a good decision if it's only to organize your work. But if you can see that this is a good decision from a business perspective, then it is. So one example is the airbags. We're going to outsource this to a company in Japan. I believe there is a company in Japan that makes most airbags for most car companies. It's a strategic direction of the organization to do that. Now, is the airbag a product? It certainly is for the group company making those airbags. Who are their customers? The customers are is the car company, right? Is their customer. And the customer here does not see the airbag as a product. They just see it part of their product. And these guys don't see these customers as customers, right? They see the company as a customer. Or internally, we've decided strategically that we might have, let's say, 12 types of cars, models of cars, but to save on costs and to increase our engineering ability, we make a strategic decision in the organization to only have 4 types of engines. Now, we're going to have focused teams on those engines, and their customers are the product managers of these cars, right? And so they are in place in order to produce value to these guys here. So they have them as customers, not this customer, these different models are the customer of the engine. That's a strategic direction that the company takes. They invest a certain amount each year into engines that produces teams and product management and all of that. So I've seen similar things. I work for a big tax organization, one of the biggest ones in the US, and they decided that they would, all the tax forms, the validation, they had a bunch of tools for retail, for accountants, they had like 4 or 5 products that consumed tax forms each year. And when the IRS put new laws in, when the government created new tax laws throughout the year, they had to update the UI of these forms plus the validation logic of them. They didn't want each of their products doing that. So they made a strategic decision to create a product, I guess, we didn't look at it at the time, but that's what it was, for just updating the tax forms. And their customers were the product managers of the different products that consume those forms. And every time laws came out throughout the year, they would update and they'd have a backlog of tax laws and their own product owner, which is a bit like an internal one like this. Does that make sense? So don't break them into products just to manage our work and backlogs. Break it into, if it makes sense to your stakeholders, your executives in the company or making strategic decisions, it should map to that. The closer we map to the real world of our products or how we want our customers to perceive our products, the better we'll be at scale as well. Make sense? So let's look at this again. So think about this. You're only focused on the things on the right here. And you're going from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 teams. How much more work really is it to do this stuff? Now, if you only have a few teams, you might decide to move this a little bit further to the left. So like you've got to make a decision on where you're going to put this line, right? And maybe it's here, and then you feel that you're comfortably able to do all this stuff. And the rest you delegate. If it's getting too much, you move the line a little bit more, you delegate more things, but you got to build trust for that. On top of this, if you think about Scrum, how else do you participate at scale? You don't go to everybody's sprint planning session. You can't, or should you? You don't even know what the backlog items are at the very top. But you know that overall the theme this sprint, the goal of the combined sprint amongst all my teams, you know what that is. So what your goal is, what you have to do is make sure the vision and goal is clear. So if you have like most scaling frameworks, there's a big room planning session. You could be a part of that, right? To make sure that the vision and the product goal is very clear, and maybe potentially a sprint goal. I think most of them decide you should have a sprint goal going into it now at scale versus not at scale. So that's on the sprint planning side. It's not necessary to go to every one of them. Daily scrums, definitely not necessary. In fact, if you're one team, I'm not going to say you should be going to these scrums either, right? And that's not for the product owner, it's for the developers. Sprint review, good to be there. Do you have to be there for everything, going through all the different features? Maybe not, but certainly make sure that stakeholders understand the vision and the product goal there too. You're constantly reminding them. And just 2 times a sprint, you can do this at minimum. Retrospectives, not necessary to be at every one. You can't be at all of them, but there should be a way to provide input to the retrospectives of what you're seeing or not, and then supporting any actions that come out of that. Nexus has the ability of having a group of people come together before the team retrospectives to come up with what some of the at scale issues are, so that we can bring them into each of the team retrospectives. That's also possible in any of the other scaling framework. Why would it not be, right? And then at the end, pulling all these solutions together to come up with something. So it's not like you have to be at every event. Like you're maybe a little bit on the sprint planning side and the review side. And then you do instead is focus on the 3 V's: vision, value, validation, the strategic side of things. Everybody knows the direction. We're measuring success in a consistent way. And we're validating the hypotheses along the way so that we know we're building the right things. in here. So that's what my focus can be, is learning from what we create, measuring value, and establishing vision. Make sense? So that's kind of it, coming back to it, right? These are the 5 T's. And what I'm trying to do here is just make it, don't let the scaling frameworks constrain you. I can show how any one of these models can apply to any scaling framework that you use. You might have to change the language. It might make your world a little bit easier when you do. But the moment we start constraining communication through layers, that's when this stuff falls down. And that is a misunderstanding with some of the scaling frameworks, that that's what they're putting in place. So that's not the intent. I can confidently say that, you know, SAFe was not built to do that, even though that's the one that gets kind of the most attention here with hierarchies. They're often misinterpreted. Like I just this week I was working with a big company saying, hey, well, we only release every PI, right? Every 5 sprints. I'm like, well, why? Well, that's what SAFe says, doesn't it? No, it says continuous releasing right up on the thing. You're supposed to be able to release whenever, right? Or normalizing points. The whole normalizing points thing is what SAFe gets in trouble all the way. No, that's something you can do at the very beginning when you've got 0 history whatsoever, and you don't have to do that. But they do it all the time. A point is equal this many people, and you know, the chief product owner, and that they have now a hierarchy there. That's not what Scrum at Scale says. Same with area product owners, are only meant for less huge, not less. Separate integration teams, or you know, team members talking to customers is another one that it's SAFe. If you look at the big SAFe model today, at version 5, I guess, right in the center is customer centricity, is that we are all supposed to focus on customers, not just the product owner. As separate integration teams, Nexus gets this sometimes with the Nexus integration team. It's like a separate group that handles all of that, but that's not true. It's individuals that represent the different teams that make that up. And that's also true with SAFe. So instead, you know, don't worry about those things. Instead, let the Agile and Scrum values and principles guide you. We all talk about cross-functional teams. That's where, like, cross-functional should also include knowledge of the business, not just technical skills. Also include customer understanding, trust. Customer collaboration is one that's all the way up and down every single Agile thing that's out there. So let's make that a real thing. Collaborate with the customer. XP, way back in XP, customers on the team, right? That's all in line with this. Empowerment, empowering them to make these decisions and trusting them to get it done. That's one of the principles, right? Trust the motivated individuals, one of the Agile principles. Focus on value, delivery of value. As long as we're doing that, I don't care how you organize. As long as we're able to show value, we're good. And then being able to experiment, probe, validate what we're doing. Make sense? So that's what I got. Hopefully, I guess I wasn't really paying attention to, like you said, about an hour. You should have told me something more specific than I would have. But I think we're there.
I'm enjoying it. That's why I didn't interrupt.
Yeah.
And you've seen that by the amount of questions.
Good.
Well,
yeah, I hope you did find it somewhat helpful. It's something you can take away with you. I'll make these available as a PDF as well. And, you know, please remember AgileWithUkraine. I know there's links going in there if you could donate on that. And then if you have any questions, you want to continue the conversation, please do. Add me on LinkedIn, send me an email, tweet me, whatever. I'm passionate about this stuff. I love exploring it and figuring other things out and changing my mind on things as well. So thank you guys so much for your attention, for hanging in there. Thanks for supporting this cause too. I really, really appreciate it. And it means a lot to me as well. And obviously more to some of you guys that are on there. So thanks everyone.
Yep, done. Thank you for like very mature presentation and answers for questions.
And very inspirational. Very, very. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Don, if you have maybe some time, we can still answer some questions. I believe.
Yeah. I got some 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And while we are in a Q&A session, I want to remind you about the donation links, and I will also share a link for tomorrow meetup. Tomorrow our guest will be Roman Pichler. So you still have a chance to register and join us on Friday evening. Continues to talk about product owners topics. This week is almost all topics were related to scaling or product owners, product management teams.
Great week.
Yeah, great week.
Yep. Can we stop the recording for Q&A session?
No, we have two Q&A sessions. One of them with recording and second one without. So just postpone your private question.
Yep. Okay.
Any other questions which
Then
could be recorded?
Well, the previous question was answered very, very, fastly. So we have time for one more.
Yep, just want to agree that like models you shared with us really actual, and yesterday we had a third day of PI planning for big number of teams. Don't want to share the exact amount because of NDA, but I definitely see the patterns you present.
Good.
So the
Yeah.
topic is like very actual. Yep.
I've got some clients here that will, like, I've got a client here in Dallas that his headquarters are in San Antonio, and they've got a big office here in Dallas. They're a huge insurance company, and they're part of a PI planning, and they were told, this is pre-pandemic, it doesn't go like this anymore, but every 5 sprints, they get in a car, they drive down to San Antonio with their team, they get into a big old room, they go into a corner. Are we recording? They go into a corner and they basically do sprint planning with their team and really don't need to interact with anybody else. They stay the night, they get back in their car the next day after PI planning is over, and they drive back to Dallas. And they're called to trim, but they're not. There are no dependencies between them. And they're wondering, why are we doing this? And they're like, well, this is how we scale. And they just picked a bunch of different teams and not think about, do we even have a scaling issue? And they just pull them together into one of these. So that's not what SAFe was ever meant to do. This is yet another, example of just completely misunderstanding why we're even there. Now, I'm all for big room planning, but the agenda for PI planning is a default and a suggestion, not a mandatory thing. I've had people in SAFe say, I'd say, well, why couldn't we do 1 week sprints? They say we can. 2 weeks is just it's a default. I said, why do we have to do PI planning every 5 sprints? Can we do it every 3? And they're like, yeah, that's just the default. Then I said, could we do PI planning every sprint and just call it sprint planning? And they said, absolutely, you can. And so we wouldn't need to spend 2 days in it if it was every sprint, right? Couldn't we just do this every single time? And yeah, and I kept asking questions like that, which just turns it into, Scrum.
Yep. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, in my opinion, SAFe it's like a big encyclopedia of a good practice.
Yeah.
And you just can construct everything you want using this big book.
Yeah. And I've lost the energy to fight it. So I work with it and it works. I mean, you can make the exact same points that we're doing here in a safe environment. And I'm not going to turn down a client that's in the midst of it. It's like, okay, we can work with you on this. The good news is, like, my biggest issue with going Agile is when they don't even believe in agility or want to do it. Then it's very, at least they've adopted SAFe, they want to. It's showing that they are moving in that direction, and that's great. They're probably doing better than most of the waterfall ones.
Yeah, by the way, that what I wanted to add, that if this SAFe, it's a midway to better agility, better adaptiveness, so why not? So if it's not bring more complexities than it was before. But unfortunately, quite often we can see some small startups start growing, hiring more people, and they are bringing more complexity and coordinational chaos, and needness in coordinate all those people around with just setting up SAFe from the box, and it could not bring them to desired state, but maybe slows them down for a while.
You know,
Well,
safe is like IKEA. You need skill to construct it.
No.
what's that?
He said like it's like IKEA.
IKEA, like IKEA.
Yeah.
You need a skill to construct it.
Yeah, you still need to know how, right? Yeah, you can't just put them through 2 days of safe training and expect them to be, fix it all, right? But look, I'll say, we've got very successful clients that use safe, that they're doing pretty well with it, and they started with Scrum, basic Scrum, and then they get and they ended up adopting it, and they make some mistakes, but we do it anyways, right? So I'm not gonna fight it. I don't like fighting it. And I don't think it's worth doing. Yeah. Like George says, meet your customers where they are, right? I saw in the chat.
Yep, actually, today we discussed this like big, map of the safe framework, and this map is huge, and they have only one small pictogram with Kanban. So, the safe is huge to understand.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat.
Yeah. And this is going to be the last question for today. We have a question from Kalina. And which combination of the 5 models of scaling the product owner accountability deliver on the speed of scaling?
That's a lofty promise, right? I would say, if done correctly, that the team model has the best potential to deliver on it. Because the thing that gets in the way of speed is needing dependencies on people, right? And other things. So if your teams are mature enough, they've been around enough where they have domain knowledge, they have relationships with customers, they truly understand the vision, then they don't need to go like with the theme one, is that that's assuming that they need to ask questions of people that are subject matter experts. But if they have it on the team, then they don't need to, so that things go faster. If you have to ask for permission for every little thing, it slows you down. It's called The Speed of Trust. There's a book called that. Having that level of trust in the people on the ground doing the work, the number one thing you get is speed. The moment you don't, you have gate checks and all that stuff, stage gates, that's what slows us down. So the team model, I guess, I haven't thought of it that way, but now that it's asked, I would say that. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here with us. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
It was
Thanks,
awesome.
everybody.
A lot of value, a lot of insights. Yeah. So
real pleasure.
Remember to donate, and we'd like to see you all tomorrow as well.
And your colleagues and your friends.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Yeah.